How do you make a good character background? We continue our discussion on Out of Character. Welcome to Out of Character. I'm Jason Corley.
I'm Scott Forster.
I'm Don Dem.
And assisting today with engineering is Aaron Lee Newburn.
Hello.
And today we're going to continue our discussion into character backgrounds, which we started last week with Jerry and Don. And we left off talking about naming a character and some of the really basic stuff that goes into creating a character. And one question I have for the two of you is, do you physically describe your character, and if so, how much?
I usually have just a little physical description. They drilled it into my head in creative writing classes. Don't describe your character. Let people figure it out on their own. Just, have the character go.
It's like they never read any Charles Dickens, man. I over-describe everything.
Yeah, I too here. I've subscribed to the same school of thought where it's like just give enough to kind of give a strong build, and because I think imaginations fill in the gaps a lot better than I can with words. But you perhaps have better words than I do.
Well, gee, gosh, Don, you'll make me blush.
No, for me,
go ahead, Aaron.
I've taken a lot of creative writing classes too. I was actually a creative writing minor, and
another area for Stump the Chups people.
Yep, feel free. One thing that I've always stressed is if I'm going to describe any physical aspect of my character, it must somehow describe who that character is. I have had one character I have described very physical detail. My character in one of Scott's campaigns, I described she has Glasgow smile. A cut mouth,
right.
A broken nose. She looks like she's gone through a ringer. She's missing half of her hair, and all of this describes a core conflict of her character, which is that she's died once.
Ah, okay. So you want to have details in your character description that express something about their background or their attitude or their position in some way.
Otherwise, I don't really need to know your eye color.
Yeah, I agree with that. Going back to what Jerry said last week, I think name is very important. To me, names are always really important.
People have such anxiety about naming their character. Like, I have it too. Like, when it comes time for me to name a character, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be stuck with this name forever. And I inevitably pick a name that makes everyone giggle behind their head.
The last character that I ran in a game was sort of a jab at the DM, but
which was me.
Also, who was Aaron? Aaron said something about languages, and I'm a linguistics major, and part of the society of that group was another online game was making little acronyms for things. Where if you need to take a sociology class, we would just say TASC when somebody said something, task. Aaron said something like, "I don't believe French exists in this world," and I was like, well, the whole idea of this doesn't make sense to me, so I just named my Thri-Kreen Talk, which was short for take a linguistics class. But then nice, an acronym. Wow. It actually paid off because the character's core concept was sort of a linguistic trick on my part, and everybody kind of knew him because he'd spoken IPA, and they sort of had to follow the clicks as he went, and it was neat. Great. It was fun.
Yeah, and of course, I've always chosen character names that reminded me of what it was. I had the Mafia one that was Antonio, so
right.
That obviously fits. And I guess I've broken down a few other times. I had a satyr by the name of Ricky, and I don't know enough about real satyr culture to know if that's a true name.
Yeah. Should study up on that.
Yeah, I really should.
I just pick stupid puns. My vampire character in Scott's game is named Malky Vienne.
I had a character handed to me one time. Get this. It was a transsexual, transvestite type of thing. And it was a random dispersal of characters. And her name was Donna. Wow. So it fit perfectly with Donna type of thing. So yeah, that was a cult of ecstasy. She was so much fun to play.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it scared a few people too.
Well, to create a good character background, one area that I try to do is I try to have a character with goals. And that's really hard as a player because you want to be surprised in a way as to where the campaign's going to go. So making a character with like really strong goals, you are not guaranteed that the game is going to be at all give you an opportunity for those goals unless you establish them in character creation with the rest of the group. So a lot of times I'll make a character that has goals, and just because of my weird tastes in content, the entire rest of the group is just not interested at all. Like, I make characters that are cheats and liars and slightly corrupt, And I play in groups with people who are like, well, my character is very straightforward. And I'll like try to have some kind of con going on with them. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? That's not true. And oh, please throw me a bone here, people. So what are some of the ways that you create good character goals? And how do you identify what's a good goal and what's not a good goal?
For me, one simple way is just give them a hobby. Because you talked about, that is very frustrating. I've had characters with deep-rooted goals and, the campaign could take a different direction. Well, if you've got a hobby, that adds color to your character and it doesn't really matter.
My wife played a character in a alternate history game where we were going from world to world to world. She would always get recordings of the musical theaters in each and every world that we went to. So she had like a collection of different versions of, well, this is from our world, it's Oklahoma. From another world, it's Arkansas. Arkansas, AK. And it just went on and on and on and on. And so she, of course, it was hilarious because she was the toughest combat character in the group by far.
That loved theater. That's great.
Loved theater.
I usually try and pick just like one little hook that I can throw at the DM if I'm making a PC that's just, and it's really vague, like, he doesn't know where his sister is anymore. And it's so open that it can just be dropped in anywhere and hope that the DM will pick up on that. If they don't, you just remind them, about once a month, hey, we should do that thing with my sister. She should show up at some point, sometime in the next year. It'd be great if, we could rescue her.
The danger is, though, and I've had this with players, too, where they tell me, Jason, I want to have this goal and I want to have this character show up. I start playing that character as the GM and I can just see the horror slide over their face as they're like, he's doing it so wrong, right? Like this is not what they wanted at all. So I always struggle with I do want to give you your sister, but what if I start playing your sister and you're like, that's not how I envisioned her. That's not what my prior relationship with her I was imagining.
I was going to say, on the flip side, when I'm a DM and somebody gives me something like that, I'll maybe make an adventure of, oh, she was captured by orcs, go rescue her. And then, or whatever, something to get her into the group. And then if the player's like, oh, well, my sister's a diplomat at such and such city, I'll be like, great.
That's the next problem that you have to solve.
You tell me what your sister says. If we're going to go meet with your sister, that's fine. You can actually run her as a little NPC for a bit. And now that we found her, it's sort of your reward,
Yeah. So that way you don't ever have to worry about playing that other person.
I just make shit up on the fly. In Scott's game, I made this character, and there's some little bit of lore who is like, oh, then there's this random halfling who's lost in a dungeon somewhere. So I just said, okay, that halfling is my cousin. We have to go rescue my cousin, guys. I will retcon my character's history as soon as the DM gives me something that I can retcon into their history. So that way my goal is always aligned with his.
So basically you wait until the game goes in a direction and then you put your character's goals in front of the game, basically.
Yeah, I don't find a goal for my character. I find a reason the goal is my character's goal.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's interesting. It throws back to something Don talked about last week about not filling out too much about the character in the beginning and sort of feeling it out and seeing where it goes. It's sort of like if you're familiar with the show Lost, where every week they were going back to flashback. This happened. Oh, that reminds me of back in my life. Yeah, let's fill in some backstory that is relevant, and you can sort of find out about the character's backstory as the game goes on.
That was a brilliant idea, by the way.
Yeah,
I love that.
Excellent.
Having the, you adopting, adopting. It's like, oh, well, here's a reason I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
Here's let me just give you one other kind of goal that has worked for me, even as I say, in my current group, which is just not interested in a lot of things I'm interested in. I pick a goal that is flat impossible, that I absolutely know for a fact I will never be able to achieve. And that takes so much pressure off of everybody. It takes the pressure off the DM to put hooks or to give me some progress.
What would be an example?
So for example, in the Star Wars game that I described last time, I was an idealistic young nobleman right before the rise of the Empire. Mm-hmm. So of course my goal was I must stop the Emperor. I must stop him at all costs. And we all knew because the movies happened and the world is such that the Empire is going to rise that we knew that this was a doomed goal.
Right.
And it gave me such freedom to be like, okay,
to fail and have fun failing.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to outmaneuver him over here and I'm going to insult Palpatine to his face in a location that he can't do anything about it, and I'm going to just completely go off the edge chasing this impossible goal. And to do that, and the DM didn't have to be like, okay, well, how close are you to stopping the Empire? No, he didn't have to worry about that. He knew I wasn't going to succeed. I knew I wasn't going to succeed. The other players knew I wasn't going to succeed, and that allowed them to also be swept up in my crusade. Right. They were able to join in because they felt the freedom of, okay, we know how this is going to come out, so let's at least choose. And, as Aaron does, let's at least choose what our characters are going to be about in that moment. So,
and your game master could always go with the Inglorious Bastards solution.
That's right.
And be like, well, you know what? Forget about those movies.
Yeah. Hey, Palpatine's down. Congratulations.
Right.
Wait, what?
Now Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I hope that these conversations have helped you. If you have ideas on how you make a good character background or problems in the creation of a character that you've had, send them to us on Twitter, talk to us on Facebook, or post on YouTube or on pulpgamer.com. And next week, we're going to talk about how do you deal with the crazy character. Should be lots of fun. See you then.
pulpgamer.com